This is the evening news from Moscow. You're listening to simultaneous interpretation from the Russian by John Glad. The program is entitled News 1, Russian Новости один. Good evening. Today we have on the news the fate of the Black Sea fleet, a press conference of Admirals Kasatonov and Chernavin. Kazakhstan will have its own army. Today, Yeltsin is in Nizhny Novgorod. Prices in Tajikistan and Turkmenistan are being determined, and there are coupons in Ukraine. The Tokyo Declaration in Japan. Poles protest over economic moves of the new cabinet. And now we have the day's news. The disintegration of the former Soviet Union, the fate of the Black Sea fleet, the introduction of coupon, and the absence of united ruble territory. All this threatens the life of the new Commonwealth, and these are the topics of our report today. There was an important press conference on the fate of the fleet. There's one in Sevastopol and the other in Moscow. This Black Sea fleet has roughly 300 ships. These are varying functions, and they can carry nuclear weapons and carry out operative strategic operations in protecting our southern borders. The sailors who signed an oath of loyalty find themselves in a difficult situation. There are questions of their social conditions to be determined yet. Today, Admiral Kasatonov conducted a press conference in Sevastopol. He confirmed that our fleet is divisible and indivisible. That is the opinion is indivisible is opinion of most of all our officers. It is not permissible that the Russian fleet be sold off. Not one person on the Black Sea fleet has signed the Ukrainian loyalty oath, according to Chernavin. The Black Sea fleet was created on the basis of the former Soviet fleet. On the cruiser, which just left, named the Kuznetsov, has sailors of 30 nationalities. And if one of them swears loyalty to Ukraine, another to Russia, another to Tajikistan, I don't know whom I would swear an oath to. Should we force this? Shouldn't we not determine what's going to happen first? What is part of strategy and what is not a part of strategy? To whom should we swear loyalty? Whose property is this? The armed forces, including the Black Sea sailors, continue to display restraint and calm. But evidently, it's not appropriate to test these qualities without end and to make the atmosphere more tense. It's hard not to agree with Admiral Chernavin. The situation with the Black Sea fleet, likewise the question of our housing, our railroads, these are all questions of politics, and these are not real agreements. Viktor Konetsky is a name which we all know. On the basis of his children's books and his adult books. Perhaps you know his book, The Striped Cruise, but we know him not only as an author of film scenarios, but he's sailed a lot of time in the Arctic. Today, if we speak about the fleet, this probably is a topic for very serious conversation. We need, I think, less emotions. We have to be calm in allotting Ukraine necessary small guarding ships, protective ships, which any independent state has a right to own to protect its shores. But the fighting core of the Black Sea fleet, which is based in Sevastopol, and is not only the fighting core of our navy, but links us with the world's oceans. In my opinion, this is, and should be a Russian fleet. The Nakhimov, the Kornilov, the Lazarev, the Istomin, the Atlebin, Surgeon Pirogov, who operated on these admirals before their death. These are sacred items with which I cannot agree to part. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Zelenko, said that the declaration of Yeltsin was hasty and emotional. He said that he was amazed by the statement. No matter how terrible this might sound, the Black Sea Fleet has become a card in a political game, which will affect all of us economically. I have in mind our daily bread, because if we don't resolve our political questions, we cannot hope to fix our economy. The ministers of foreign affairs of our republics are doing their best. They have a lot of problems in front of them. The meeting should have begun, but there was no Ukrainian delegation. But Minister Zelenko, as soon as he arrived, denied all these rumors. We consider that the negotiations should be constructive and lead us to mutually acceptable decisions, and we are prepared to work on this basis. This is Mr. Kozyryev, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia. I would say we don't have a conflict between countries, but a conflict of points of view. A conflict between states. This is a political clash of insurmountable interests. But here we have a search between Russia and Ukraine for a solution. 5 points here. First of all, to create a working group within which the heads of state can meet. We have to have a mechanism. The second is very complex. We have to observe international agreements on nuclear and conventional forces and their reduction. The Russians proposing that we have a joint armed forces. The negotiations are complex, but the participants are just developing their positions. We have to overcome the fears of the past. There's a fear of a dictatorship from the center, and we have to find compromise in such emotional questions as the fate of the Black Sea Fleet. Andrei Kozyryev said we had to get used to discuss and argue, and if necessary, to conduct new negotiations. Soon, these negotiations will have lasted a long time. Since they're still going on. The breakup of the army is a problem. In Almaty, there's a meeting of the Ministry of Defense of Kazakhstan. At this first meeting, which was presided over by Nazarbayev, who's the president of the country, and likewise the Minister of Defense, they discussed the agreement signed by the majority of states in the Commonwealth. There's to be inventory taken of units situated or stationed in Kazakhstan. There will be a Republican Guard of roughly 2,500 persons, which will have as its basic goal the protection of the constitutional structures of the Republic. There's a draft of the which will determine the status of the Guard. There is also a presidential order on internal troops, which will be handed over to Major General Gardeyev as commander. Military units will have dual subordination. There will also be a reorganization of the military academy in Almaty and change it into a more broadly based university, something like the Suvorov institution. We have an important piece of news from the press center of the armed forces of the Commonwealth. Troops have been sent to clarify the situation with the loyalty oath. Who should take it? And in what order? The documents were handed over for them to get acquainted with. The recommendations to be developed will be debated at an all-army meeting of officers, which will take place on the 17th of January in Moscow. The troops have been instructed up till then to not ask the troops to sign any personal oath of loyalty. The President of Russia, Boris Yeltsin, who just completed a trip to Saratov, Nizhny Novgorod, and Ulyanovsk, had a lot of serious criticism to hear over the liberalization of prices. He expected to have rotten eggs thrown at him, but that didn't happen. People are still impressed by his decisiveness and his frank request that he be permitted to work. Today he was in Nizhny Novgorod. Today in the morning in Nizhny Novgorod, the president visited a food store in the Mytny market. There was an important event today. In the middle of the day, the bread line started to disappear. There are none at all today, and there is bread for sale. We don't want to link the two events together, but we hope that the city authorities and bakers have found an optimal decision to satisfy the buyers and the purchasers who find themselves in a state of light shock. And, Yeltsin was amazed that the prices at the market were sometimes lower than in the market. He was unhappy with the market, which had inflated prices. I gave the order